بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا، إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا، وانفعنا بما علمتنا، وزدنا علما. وأسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يرزقنا حسن النية وحسن الختام. I praise Allah. I thank Allah for the endowments He has given us, without Allah being obligated to give us anything. And I ask Allah to raise the rank of our Prophet Muhammad and to protect his Muslim nation from whatever he feared for it. May Allah give us all the sincere intentions and the good ending. So, inshallah, we'll start a new chapter today, which is the conditions of marriage. So, in the printed book, that's page 33. So, the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, he said, the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, said in his advice regarding women, استحللتم فروجهن بكلمة الله, which means you have made their private parts lawful for you by the word of Allah. So the meaning of with the word of Allah, the meaning of with the word of Allah is the contract's formula. That is, the marriage contract's condition is the formula, meaning the words that the girl's father or her guardian says to the groom or the groom's representative. Okay. So marriage, and this is something we mentioned previously, marriage is a contract. And in contracts, there are conditions and integrals. This marriage contract requires a statement, a verbal statement, and it must be done in a specific way, similar to other contracts. Although in some other contracts, a verbal statement, according to some scholars, is not a requirement. And so if you want to buy a gallon of milk, according to some scholars, it is necessary that there be an exchange of statements. And I buy this gallon of milk for $10. And the cashier says, I accept. Therefore, if you put the gallon of milk on the counter, you hand them $10, and then you walk out, they don't say anything, you don't say anything. According to some scholars, this is not valid. It's not valid. According to other scholars, it is valid as long as the subject of the contract is something in which people would normally exchange or accept without there being an explicit statement, like a gallon of milk, a bag of chips, a loaf of bread. Otherwise, something like a house, for example, you go to someone who has a for sale sign and you hand them a check for $500,000 and they hand you the keys, you don't say anything, then that house does not become yours. There needs to be an actual formula involved. So the formula for the marriage contract is an offer and acceptance. The offer of the guardian or the one who is conducting the contract on behalf of the woman, and the groom or the one who represents the groom. So it is not a condition for the marriage to be valid, for the marriage contract to be valid, that the one who accepts marrying the woman would be the groom himself. He could appoint someone to represent him, to accept the marriage of that woman on his behalf. So the father or the guardian or the one who is conducting the marriage contract for the woman, he would say, I marry you to my daughter, so and so. The woman who is the subject of the contract, and again, while we're calling it a contract, the woman is not being sold, okay? She is not being sold, but rather it is a contract. So not all contracts involve a sale in which the ownership of the subject is being transferred from one party to the next. What the man is acquiring, however, in the marriage contract is a right, a benefit, and that primary benefit is what the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in this statement, which is deeming the private parts lawful for the man. That is, the marriage contract is what makes physically enjoying the woman, sexual intercourse or otherwise, lawful for that man. Otherwise, it would not be lawful. Now, when the guardian tells the groom that I marry you to my daughter, so and so, it's not a condition that her name be specified, but she needs to be known. She needs to be known. So if he has two daughters, he cannot say to the man, I marry you to one of my daughters. And then the man says, I accept marrying one of your daughters. And then later he chooses which one. No. She has to be known. Either she is known by name, she is so and so, the daughter of so and so, and her first name, her family name, or she is known by face. So if a woman comes with a niqab, and those who are the one conducting the marriage contract does not know who she is. And the witnesses of the marriage contract do not know who she is. They don't know her name. She doesn't give her name. No one gives her name. And they don't know what she looks like. They haven't seen her face. Then this marriage contract is not valid. She does not have to uncover her face. She can give her name. I'm so and so. Okay. And then everyone would know who she is. If she doesn't want to give her name, then she needs to show her face. So the guardian would say, I marry you to my daughter, so and so. And the groom replies, I accept her marriage. This is the word of Allah in the presence of two upright Muslim witnesses, according to the madhab of Imam al-Shafi'i, radiyallahu anhu, because the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا نكاح إلا بولي وشاهدي عدل, which means there is no marriage, no marriage contract except with a guardian and two upright witnesses, narrated by Al-Bayhaqi. Okay, so as you can see, we have several things here that we need to conduct a marriage contract. You have a bride, a groom, a guardian, witnesses, and the exchanged statement, the offer of marriage to the woman and the acceptance of her marriage. However, there is some difference of opinion among the different schools. For example, in the Hanafi school, the woman can conduct the marriage contract on her own behalf. She can give herself away in marriage. In the Shafi'i school, she cannot. She needs a guardian, or she needs someone to give her away. She cannot do it on her own. She cannot do it on her own. If she does not have a guardian, then there is a process to exhaust. If the process is exhausted, then there is talk about this among the scholars about that. Like there's no one to give her away in marriage. According to some, she cannot get married then. She does not get married. In the Maliki school, she needs a guardian. She needs someone to give her away. That someone is a male, not a female. So a woman does not give another woman away in marriage. Okay? However, the guardian can give, let's say a father, for example, he can give his daughter away in marriage without witnesses. But be careful, because if you just take one statement from one madhab that you're not familiar with and you run with it, most likely you'll end up committing a sin because you don't know all of the other details. Okay. For example, if the father gave his daughter away in marriage without any witnesses, he's not allowed to have sexual intercourse with her unless the marriage is announced in a specific way. It needs to be announced. So if the father gave her away, they're married. They're married. So if he had intercourse with her, it's not zina. But if it is not announced, then he would be committing a sin. And it has to be done in a specific way. Now, let's say, and that's not even a worst case scenario, okay? So let's say, for example, a person says, okay, Abu Hanifa said the woman can give herself away in marriage. And there's evidence for that. There's evidence in the Quran for that. And Imam Malik, rahimahullah, he said, Imam Malik, he said that the marriage contract can be conducted without two witnesses. So one said you don't need a guardian, but you need witnesses. Another said you don't need witnesses, but you need a guardian. So a person says, okay, I'm going to combine these two and marry the woman without a guardian and without witnesses. This is not valid. The marriage contract is not valid. And doing so that way will result in zina, because they will not be married. So one has to be careful with these things. So this hadith that Al-Bayhaqi narrated, لا نكاح إلا بولي وشاهدي عدل, that there is no marriage except with a guardian and two upright witnesses. This hadith was authenticated by Shafi'i, and therefore the two madhabs, and he means the Shafi'i and the Hanafi madhabs, differed. A lay person, such as ourselves, may follow either of the two madhabs while considering the remaining conditions of the madhab. So you want to underline the remaining conditions of the madhab, which we'll talk about, but we're going to stick to the Shafi'i school in particular. And I would encourage the parents to, those who have daughters, to emphasize, even if they get married without your permission, and that marriage would be valid in the Hanafi school, it does not mean they escape committing a sin, even an enormous sin. It doesn't mean they escape that. Because it does happen a lot where the girl wants to marry someone and she doesn't want her father to know. So she might be married, but it doesn't mean she avoids the sin of harming the parents. And uquq al-walidain is a serious, enormous sin. The sin of harming the parents, it is an enormous sin. So one has to be careful. Now the formula of the contract is verbal. Therefore, if one merely wrote it down or filled out a predefined form, then this is invalid. So let me repeat. If one merely wrote it down or filled out a predefined form, this is invalid. So there are some online forums that says Islamic marriage contracts. Okay. People will download them. It's it's like an IRS Social Security form. You fill out the blanks, write your name here, write your name here, then sign there. So the girl writes her name, the man writes his name, the witnesses write down their name, and then that's it. This is not valid. They don't even do that in Vegas. It's not valid. So this is something that came up during the Riyadh. People said, I have a written marriage contract. I'm assuming this is not what they actually did. They just filled out a form and that was it. But rather, they did an Islamic marriage contract and then it was documented on paper. Because marriages are recorded even in Islamic countries, and they have been for a long period of time. So we're not saying you cannot write them down, you cannot record the marriage and record who the witnesses were. No. And there is benefit in that. If there is a dispute about the dowry and you forgot who the witnesses were, well, you can just refer to the paper. It's written down, so and so and so and so. So you can resolve the dispute by going to the witnesses. What did we get married in exchange for? Okay. So writing it down is one thing, but writing it down only without any verbal exchange between the guardian and the groom, this is not valid. Imam an-Nawawi in Ar-Rawdah said, no, it is not necessary. So it's not necessary to write it down. It's not necessary. It's something that people do, but it's not necessary. It's not a condition. Sorry. So someone asked a question. They said, if someone gets married online and the two witnesses and groom/bride are on Zoom too, is this valid or not valid without form or bride and groom being together in person? I know a sister in a situation like the mentioned. Perhaps you have some advice I can give her. Okay, I have no knowledge of the validity of getting married over Zoom, over Skype, over the phone. I have no knowledge of that. I'm I'm not saying it's invalid. I'm not saying it's valid. I'm saying I have no knowledge of it. I have no knowledge of it. So, inshallah, I'll ask about it. So Imam an-Nawawi in Ar-Rawdah said, if someone writes to a person, whether absent or present, regarding marriage, it does not count as valid. It's not valid. Someone writes on a piece of paper, I give you my daughter in marriage. The other person writes back, I accept. It's not valid. Even if they are writing a letter to someone who is not present. Okay. It has been said that it is valid in the case of the absent person. So listen to what Imam An-Nawawi says. He says, it has been said. He used the term qila. It has been said that it is valid in the case of the absent person, writing to someone who is absent. Right after that, he said, لَكِنَّهُ لَيْسَ بِشَيْءٍ. But this is nothing. It's nothing. It's like it's like it was never said. It has no weight, is disregarded completely. So here, there is something that you should know. And I included the rest of the statement in the book for this very reason. Just because you find something in a book, even if it is the book of a great, reputable scholar, it does not mean it is correct. It could be a typo, could be a slip of the pen. You have slips of the tongue, it could be a slip of the pen. It could be that the one who copied the book, remember in the past, you used to take books to a person who would copy them before you had printing press. Okay. It could be that that person made the mistake, not the author. Or it could be that someone perverted the book. And it happens that words of negation are dropped by mistake. The scholar who wrote the book, he wanted to say it is not valid, but his hand slipped and not was omitted. So what he actually wrote was, it is valid, but he meant to write, it's not valid. So then people read the book, they don't verify the content, they don't have a sound way of measuring what is correct and what is not correct. They just accept whatever they read, whatever they hear, especially if it's on the internet nowadays, TikTok. So many people, they get their religious knowledge from the internet. This is not the proper way. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that it is enough for a person to be a liar أن يحدث عن كل ما سمع. أن يحدث عن كل ما سمع. It's enough for a person to be a liar, to be considered a liar, that he repeats everything he hears. So if you want to be a liar, just repeat everything you hear. There's going to be some lies in there somewhere. And likewise, if you take everything you read without any type of filter, you're going to be bound to make mistakes. So in Nawawi, he says, because, why is he saying that this is not valid to merely write down a marriage contract? Because it is, yani writing, is an indirect expression, kinaya, an indirect expression. And marriage is not established through indirect expressions. That is, they have to be explicit. They have to be explicit. The Hanafi madhab stated that the hadith, there is no marriage except with a guardian, is not authentic. So it's not that Abu Hanifa was ignorant of the hadith, or he didn't know it, or he was weak in hadith. No, they didn't consider it authentic. And this is something common that leads to difference of opinion. Whereas most hadith scholars said it is authentic. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, may Allah raise his rank, reported that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "There is no marriage except with a guardian." This is a sound and authentic hadith reported by At-Tirmidhi, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal strengthen this chain of narration. So although there is hadith about it, there is difference of opinion regarding the authenticity of the hadith. And the hadith was not confirmed without difference of opinion. If the hadith was confirmed without difference of opinion, then the opinions or the statements of scholars that suggested otherwise or stated otherwise would have been invalidated. Does everyone understand that? So let me repeat in other terms. In the Hanafi school, a woman can give herself away in marriage. There are conditions regarding her age, regarding her mental capacity, okay? But she can conduct the marriage contract herself. So one might say, but there's a hadith that you need a guardian. She needs a guardian. This hadith did not invalidate the opinion of Abu Hanifa because it's not authentic by consensus. It's not authentic by consensus. And also, their main evidence was verses from the Quran, anyway, which are stronger than hadith. Okay? Because each verse from the Quran is mutawatir, and the text is by consensus. We're not talking about the meaning, just the text. Okay. Now, the marriage contract is not valid except with a guardian, according to some, and two upright witnesses, according to the Shafi'i school. In the Hanafi school, it is enough to have one male and two female witnesses. In the Shafi'i school, both witnesses must be male. It doesn't mean females cannot be present, but as far as the validity of the contract is concerned, the witnesses which are counted are two upright males. Okay. And the uprightness or the trustworthiness, which is referred to here, is what is apparent. What is apparent? Yani, that means the consideration is what appears from the person, not their inward state. The inward state of the person is that he could be an enormous sinner. Just people don't know about his enormous sins. He could be committing an enormous sin of the heart that only Allah knows about, like insincerity. He comes to the masjid, he calls the adhan with a very beautiful voice. So people will say he has a beautiful voice. So he's being insincere. That's an enormous sin. But there's no way for us to know that. Only Allah knows what's in the heart of the person. So that may be the reality of this witness. But we are not obligated to interrogate and investigate the inward states of people. So concerning the witnesses, we go according to what is apparent, which means, what if this insincere person who commits enormous sins in his heart was a witness to a marriage contract? Does this render the marriage contract invalid? The answer is no. So if the person regretted, then confessed. When I was, he said, when I was a witness for this marriage contract, I was at that time an enormous sinner. So these two spouses do not say that means our marriage contract was invalid, we need a new one. Their marriage contract is valid. Their marriage contract is valid. Their marriage contract is valid. Even the Muslim judge does not invalidate or deem their marriage contract invalid if a witness later turned out to be a sinner. Okay? However, if you know about yourself that you are a sinner, that you are not upright, that you're not religiously trustworthy, if you know about yourself, then it is not permissible for you to sit to be a witness in a marriage contract. I mean, the two witnesses that we are counting, if there are 50 and there are two who are upright and you sat to make it 51, that's fine. We're not talking about that because you're not counted as what's required. But if there are only two and you are one of the two, I cannot sit because I'm not trustworthy. No, just say, I don't want to do it. Find someone else. Say, I don't want to do it. Find someone else. That's it. You don't have to give a reason. You don't have to give a reason. Now, in the school of Abu Hanifa, it is not a condition for the witnesses to be trustworthy. So the witnesses, even if they are not trustworthy, the contract would still be valid. Even if they are not trustworthy, the contract will still be valid in the Hanafi school. Yes, there are other conditions for the witnesses, which we'll come to. So the marriage contract is not valid except with a guardian and two upright witnesses. Now, one other thing I want to mention about the uprightness, and this is another reason why some people may excuse themselves. Let me give you an example to make it easy for you to understand. Let's say you know a person who was an alcoholic. Then they came to you and they said, I'm clean. I'm on the wagon. So you say, how long? They say 2 days. What comes to your mind? Yeah, it's not long enough. Like you've just gotten on. It is very easy for you to regress, to fall off again. We want to see more time. We want to see you on the wagon more time. Everyone understand? Right? So in this issue of the uprightness of a witness, there is a similar detail. So a person was an enormous sinner. Then they repented. So how much time should lapse before before consideration is given to them to be a valid witness? 1 year. 1 year. Yes.
Quick question, Sheikh. Are you speaking of major sin or minor sin?
Major sins. However, there is something called persisting in committing small sins. Okay. If a person persisted in committing small sins to the point that their small sins outweighed their good deeds or outnumbered their good deeds, then this counts as an enormous sin itself. This counts as an enormous sin itself. Okay, so again, the person is sinning, committing small sins. And they commit small sins, more and more small sins, small sins. They're not doing any enormous sins, small sins, small sins. And they're not doing any good deeds. And they do so many small sins that they outweigh their good deeds. They persisted in disobedience to Allah so much that they have more small sins than good deeds. Then an enormous sin will be written for them. Okay? We're not talking about in a single day that the person did small sins throughout the entire day. It's not like just any given day. We're talking about in totality. So the marriage contract would have a guardian, 2 upright witnesses, and 2 spouses. So a person cannot marry themselves, obviously. And when we say 2 spouses, we mean a man and a woman. It is absolutely invalid for a woman to marry a woman or a man to marry a man. Absolutely invalid. And anyone who deems it valid or permissible Islamically is not a Muslim. Anyone who says that same-sex marriage is valid or good Islamically is not a Muslim, because they are belying the Quran and they are belying what is known from the religion. So it is like they are saying, I am right and Islam is wrong. That means they don't believe in Islam. So these two spouses would be free from marriage impediments. Marriage impediments. Yani something that prevents them from conducting a marriage contract. For example, the man has 4 wives, so he cannot marry a fifth. That's one example. Or the woman is married, so she cannot marry a second. Even if her husband left her. Okay, he left her, but did he divorce her? No, he just left. Leaving does not constitute divorce. And an offer, such as the guardian saying, I marry you to my daughter, or I give you my daughter in marriage. And acceptance, such as the groom or his representative saying, I accept her marriage, or I accept this marriage. Yeah. And up till this point, is it clear? Does anyone have any questions? Um, all right, so there are some questions from Zoom. Okay, so regarding the witnesses, when I said if you are one of the two, okay. So this is concerning a witness who is not qualified to be a witness. If you have a man and a woman, they want to get married, then the guardian. Now we need 2 witnesses. If one of the 2 witnesses is not trustworthy, then you cannot count him. So you need another witness. It does not mean he cannot be present. It just means he's not counted. Okay? So if a third came and that third person was trustworthy, then you have 2 trustworthy witnesses. And the third person is witnessing the marriage contract, but they are not counted as one of the witnesses that rendered the contract valid. This is what we're saying. And someone asked, could 2 females and 1 male also be witnesses in the Shafi'i school? No, not in the Shafi'i school. Is it only in the Hanafi school where this is valid? In the Hanafi school, it is valid. Is it only in the Hanafi school? I don't know. It says, can one marry under one scholar, divorce 3 times, and marry under, I will not answer this question. Um, it says the detail for the major sinner who repents waiting for a year before being a witness. Is that only for the one who is a habitual major sinner? Or does this even include the one who is upright and happened to commit an enormous sin? I did not. Okay, so the question is the detail for the major sinner who repents, waiting for a year before being a witness. Is that only for the one who is a habitual major sinner? Or does this even include the one who is upright and happen to commit a major sin? I did not learn a distinction. Someone asked, can a representative accept on the woman's behalf with or without her consent? No, a representative is the one. So I assume by representative, you do not mean the guardian, yani the father or the grandfather. The father or the grandfather, in certain circumstances, is allowed to give the woman away without her consent. But there are details. There are details. Only the father or the grandfather in certain circumstances. So there are conditions. There are conditions for the state of the woman and the state of the guardian and the relationship between the two. Okay. As for a representative, meaning a wakil, the wakil is the one that was authorized. Either the wakil is authorized by the guardian in in the Shafi'i school, or so say, and this is something that's common, the woman, her father is alive and present, but the one conducting the marriage contract on behalf of the woman, the one who is giving her away, is her brother or someone else, although her father is present. And the guardianship has a specific order. The father authorized, made the brother his wakil, his agent, to act on his behalf. Similarly, in the Hanafi school, the woman, she can authorize someone else, a wakil, not a wali, to conduct the marriage contract. But this is with her consent. And at any time, she can revoke it. So when the woman appoints someone as she has no Muslim male relatives, for example, and there's no Khalifa, there's no Muslim judge, she goes to the masjid and she appoints someone who is upright, trustworthy, and who knows the rules of marriage, how to conduct a marriage contract properly. This person, this man, would be her wakil. He would be her wakil, not wali. A wali is different than a wakil. Okay? Is there any, does anyone have any questions? There's another one here. Uh, so someone said, they said, I am new to the class, but I really need to know this information because I am getting married soon. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Is there any way I can access the previous Zoom class recordings? Yani, there is someone who puts them on YouTube. I don't know if they are in if they're in the session, then they can post the link. Otherwise, I need to get it and then post it for you. Okay, subhanallah. He said also, will we go over the conditions of entering in a polygynous marriage? There is a section for that, inshallah. We'll cover it. Someone said, is it a valid contract in the school of Imam Abu Hanifa to marry without witnesses and give herself? No, this is not valid. In the Hanafi school, you need witnesses. Someone said also, is the wakil still counted as a guardian? No, the wakil and the guardian are two different things. Technically, they are two different things, but they are conducting the same function. Okay, so in the position, this position that the guardian, the wali, is in, there are others who can fulfill those duties. A wakil, or the khalifa, or the manumitter. So that is the former slave owner who set a slave free. Or a muhakkam. We'll talk later about the muhakkam. Yeah, a muhakkam is someone who acts when there is no Muslim judge. You might translate it as an arbitrator. They're called muhakkam. But the muhakkam is not a wakil, because the wakil only needs to be appointed by one side. The muhakkam has to be appointed by both. If the woman makes someone a muhakkam in her marriage, but the man does not agree, this contract is not valid. A wakil can be one-sided. The muhakkam cannot. Okay. So they said, can you explain the difference between the wali and the wakil? We'll give more details about this later, but in brief, the wilaya, making someone a wali, it follows the order of inheritance. But we'll give more details. The wakil does not have to be a paternal male relative. They can be a stranger. Okay. So those are all the questions. Is no one here has any questions?
I did, but I can't remember the word you just used. The,
Muhakkam?
yes.
Okay.
Under what circumstances would you use?
So the question is, under what circumstances would you use a muhakkam when there is no Muslim judge? So let's say a woman, and this is a common scenario in this country. A woman becomes a Muslim. She has no Muslim male relatives from her father's side. Okay? The mother's side, there's no wilaya for maternal male relatives. A maternal male relative, so a male family member who does not share the same lineage as the woman, is not a guardian based upon the blood relationship. Based upon the blood relationship. to the woman. They can be a guardian from another way. Maybe her son, for example, because her son, his lineage goes through who? Her? No, his father. So the son cannot be a guardian. He is mahram, he's unmarriageable, but he's not a guardian. He's not a guardian from that relationship. But what if he is the son of her paternal first cousin? So he is her son and her second cousin. We talked about this. She married Ibn Am. So he is Ibn Am. He is the son of her paternal uncle. Right? So from that relationship, he could be her guardian. So let's say she has no male relatives who are Muslim or qualified to be a guardian. Then where does the guardianship go to? The Khalifa. But we don't have a Khalifa. So if there's no Khalifa, then who? The Qadi, the Muslim judge, not, Judge Joe Brown. Okay? Yeah, that guy's a character too. So she can't go to family court or go to an officer of family court and say, I want you to be, you'll give me away in marriage. No. A Muslim judge. Okay? If there's no Muslim judge, and where are you going to find a Muslim judge nowadays? And there's no Muslim judge in Philadelphia. Let's just leave it like that. Okay? So there's no Muslim judge. Now what does she do? She wants to get married. Then she can appoint her and the man she wants to marry, the groom. Both of them would appoint a muhakkam. So they appoint a substitute for the Muslim judge in what pertains to their marriage, not her entire affairs and things like this, okay? And that's when she would need one, okay? Because she cannot, in the Shafi'i school, she cannot appoint a wakil, because you cannot appoint someone to do something on your behalf that you don't have the authority to do. Okay, I cannot hire a real estate agent to sell Tariq's house because I don't have the authority to sell his house to begin with. So my appointing of a wakil in that matter is not valid. So a woman in the Shafi'i school cannot appoint a wakil because she does not have that authority to begin with. In the Hanafi school, she can, because she has the authority, as long as the other conditions are fulfilled. Okay. So I'll answer this last question and then let's stop. Said for the sisters who are who offers to be her is her contract valid? Okay. So this is an important question. This will be the last question. It says, for the sisters that are new to Islam and they find any brother who offers to be her wali, is her contract valid if he speaks on her behalf? No. Okay. So the question is, for the sisters that are new to Islam and they find any brother who offers to be her wali, is her contract valid if he speaks on her behalf? So, yani, I am assuming she means marriage contract. The answer is no, because she does not have the authority to appoint someone as a wali. So we said from the very beginning, the marriage contract is not like other contracts. There are serious consequences if it's not done properly. So one has to pay extra attention to the words of the contract, the who actually is the guardian. If she doesn't have a guardian, okay, what does she do? Did the witnesses actually witness the contract? What was actually said in the contract? All of this matters. As the Prophet ﷺ said, استحللتم فروجهن بإيش؟ بكلمة الله. That their private parts were made lawful for you by what? He didn't say بأي شيء, by anything. He said بكلمة الله, by the word of Allah. That's not do it however you see fit. Say whatever, no matter what, as long as your intention was, it doesn't mean no matter as long as your intention is good, that's okay, it works out. As long as you love each other, no. You have to do it properly. Yani in the prayer, can someone recite Alif Ba Ta'i in the prayer instead of reciting Al-Fatiha? So someone stands in the prayer and they say Alif Ba Ta Tha Jim Ha Ha. They cannot do that. They cannot do that. They cannot do that. So the religion of Islam is not do whatever you want. It's not do whatever you want, however you want. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'll say this and then I'll stop because I don't want to keep going. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Inna Allah Ta'ala yuhibbu ahadakum إذا عمل عملا أن يتقنه." قيل وما إتقانه يا رسول الله؟ قال يخلصه من الرياء والبدعة. This means surely Allah accepts the one among you who does a deed properly. Who does a deed properly. The companions asked him, what is doing a deed properly? وَمَا إِتْقَانُهُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. O Messenger of Allah, what is doing a deed properly? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, he explained, it is يُخْلِصُهُ, it is purifying the deed, مِنَ الرِّيَاءِ, from insincerity, وَالْبِدْعَةِ, and literally innovation, meaning anything that contradicts the religion, anything that does not comply with the religion. So people have to learn If they did not learn in the past, inshallah, they are learning now. At least for their own sake, they will learn before they die. And any mistake they made, they fix it before they die. And alhamdulillah, for the one who Allah guides to fix their mistakes before they die. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam wa ahkam. Inshallah, any question I did not answer, we'll answer it next week. Wabillahi tawfiq.